Ladies, let me tell you something right now. Weakness in a man don't always show up in a broke down car or a broken bank account. Sometimes it shows up dressed real nice, smelling expensive and talking smooth. You ever meet a man who talks like he owns the world, but can't manage to own his own emotions? That's not strength, that's a cover-up. Today, I'm not here to bash men. I'm here to bless you with wisdom. Because if you can spot the signs early, you can save yourself from heartbreak, headaches, and hard times. Break it down. These are the 10 hidden signs of male weakness. Every woman UST know. Weakness don't always walk in with a limp. That right there is something every woman needs to let sink in. See, been taught to recognize weakness like it's supposed to be obvious. Like it's gonna show up dragging its feet, looking pitiful, broke down, begging for help. But the truth is, some of the weakest men walk in with tailored suits, $1,000 shoes, perfect smiles, and egos too big to fit in the room. They're dressed up, polished, dangerous. Not because they're mean, but because they know how to perform strength without ever developing it. You see a limp, you feel sorry for a man, but when he walks smooth, talks slick, and knows all the right things to say, most women don't think to question what's really going on underneath. That's the trap. Weakness is not about what he wears or what he drives. Weakness is how he reacts under pressure. It's how he handles failure, how he talks when he's angry, how he behaves when you say no. But too many women get caught up in appearances. You think because he's confident, he's strong. Nah, there's a big difference between confidence and arrogance. One comes from knowing who you are. The other comes from needing everybody else to believe something you don't even believe yourself. A weak man doesn't always crumble in the beginning. In fact, the weak ones know how to hide. They're the best actors. You ask him what he wants in life, and he paints a picture so pretty, you start dreaming for him. But here's the catch. He ain't done one thing to make any of it happen. He talks success like he's already there. But there's no plan, no sacrifice, no humility. That's weakness. See, strength ain't loud. Strength is silent discipline. Strength is consistency, self-respect, and the ability to stand tall without needing a round of applause every 5 minutes. A weak man will go the extra mile to make sure he looks strong. But the minute you pull back the curtain, you realize it's all just a performance. No foundation, just flexing. And some of y'all fall for the flex because you're looking for muscles instead of maturity. You're chasing presence instead of character. And then you wonder why 6 months in, everything feels off. It's because you fell in love with the version of him he wanted you to see, not the one he really is when nobody's watching. A strong man can say, I don't know, and still feel like a man. A weak man can't even admit he made a mistake. He'll twist the truth, shift the blame, make you feel guilty for bringing it up in the first place. You ever been in an argument where every point you make somehow becomes your fault by the end of it? That's weakness. That's a man who doesn't know how to face himself. And when a man can't face himself, he'll hurt you trying to protect that fragile little ego. But because he smiles, because he pays the bill, because he opens doors, you overlook that part. You excuse it. And let me be clear, being a gentleman is not a pass for being emotionally immature. Holding the door don't mean he knows how to hold space for you. Being polite don't mean he's got strength. Sometimes it just means he knows how to act. And we've all met actors. You know that scene he puts on when your friends are around, how he turns on the charm, makes everybody think you hit the jackpot. That ain't always the truth. Sometimes that's just rehearsed behavior. A weak man is great at pretending until pretending ain't enough anymore. Now let's talk about pressure, because pressure reveals everything. You want to know who a man really is? Watch what he does when life gets hard. Does he face it or fold? Does he make a plan or make excuses? A weak man will fall apart in the storm and then blame the rain. He'll start saying things like, the world's against me. Nothing ever works out for me. You just don't understand what I'm going through. Nah. A strong man will say, it's tough, but I'm working on it. There's no pride in pretending like you got it all together when you don't. The real strength is in showing up, being honest, and doing the work anyway. The weak man wants to be praised for potential, not for progress. He wants you to stay with him while he figures it out. But he ain't even really trying to figure it out. He just wants company in his confusion. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake that for love. He'll say all the right things, tell you how different you are, how nobody's ever understood him like you do. And it'll sound so deep, but you'll wake up one day realizing all you've been doing is carrying him, carrying his insecurities, carrying his ambition, carrying his identity, because he's too weak to carry it himself, and you might be strong enough to carry too, but that ain't what love is supposed to be. This don't always walk in with a limp. Sometimes it walks in with a smirk, a nice watch, a smooth talk game, and a heart too scared to show up fully. So pay attention, not to the performance, but to the patterns. The truth is always in the patterns. Ladies, let's be real for a second. Somewhere along the line, y'all got sold this lie that a man who walks in like he owns the place must have it all together, that the louder he talks, the firmer his handshake, the bigger his presence, the more powerful he must be. But let me break this down for you. Ego is not strength. Don't get fooled by the show. You ever meet a man who's always got something to prove, always needs to be the center of attention, always got a story about how somebody tried him and how he handled it? That ain't strength. That's insecurity doing push-ups in public. That's ego dressing up as power, because real strength doesn't need applause. See, real strength is quiet. It doesn't need to be announced. It shows up in how a man moves when nobody's watching, how he speaks when he doesn't have the floor, how he acts when he doesn't get his way. But a man with ego, he always needs to be right, always needs to win, always needs you to know he's not the one to mess with. Ladies, listen, if a man has to remind you how strong he is, probably not. He's performing for you because he doesn't actually believe it himself. It's a mask. It's armor. And a lot of y'all are falling in love with that armor, thinking it's protection, when really it's just fear trying to stay hidden. Now don't get me wrong, confidence. Confidence is beautiful. A confident man walks into a room and makes people feel safe. He listens more than he talks. He doesn't need to belittle others to feel powerful. He doesn't compete with his woman. He covers her, uplifts her, celebrates her shine. But ego is loud. Ego wants control. Ego's the one that gets jealous when you succeed, gets defensive when you speak truth, gets loud when it feels small. And what too many women do is confuse that ego for masculinity. You think because he's assertive or aggressive, that means he's alpha. That's not alpha, baby. That's anxious. That's a boy in a man's body trying to dominate everything around him because deep down, he can't handle being vulnerable. Let's talk about vulnerability, since that's the real flex. Strength is being able to say, I'm hurt, without attacking you. Strength is being able to hear you disappointed me and not spiral into rage or blame. But a man ruled by ego, he hears any criticism as an attack on his manhood. You tell him you're feeling neglected and he flips it. Well, you don't appreciate me anyway. That's not power. That's panic. Panicking because any crack in the mirror of perfection makes him feel exposed. That ego is fragile, and fragile things break under pressure. And here's the danger. A man driven by ego will make you feel like the problem every time he's uncomfortable. You'll start questioning yourself. Maybe I am asking for too much. Maybe I should have said it differently. Maybe I'm being dramatic. But sis, no. You're just dealing with someone who can't regulate his emotions unless he's in control. And that's not strength. That's fear. Fear of being seen, fear of not being enough, fear of being powerless. But instead of facing that fear, he hides it behind ego, behind volume, behind domination. And some of y'all mistake that domination for leadership. You think because he's making decisions, calling the shots, taking charge, that means he's leading. No, real leadership comes with accountability. A strong man doesn't need to dominate. He collaborates. He considers. He leads from love, not from fear. But a man full of ego will lead from pride and panic. He'll pull you into his chaos and call it structure. He'll silence your voice and call it peace. And if you're not careful, you'll start shrinking yourself to keep him feeling big. Don't confuse volume with vision. A man who shouts the loudest often has the least figured out. Don't confuse confidence with control. A man who always needs to be in control is often terrified of what happens when he's not. And don't confuse power with performance. Strong man doesn't need to prove anything to anybody, he just is. So ask yourself this when he walks in the room: do you feel secure? Or do you feel silence? You speak your truth, does he listen? Or does he lash out? When you shine, does he cheer? Or does he compete? Because those answers will tell you everything you need to know about whether you're dealing with strength or ego. And you better learn the difference. Ego talks. Strength shows up. A real man ain't scared to say how he feels. He ain't scared to look you in the eye and tell you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. He's not afraid of saying, "I love you," "I need help," or "that hurt me." Because to him, vulnerability isn't weakness, it's honesty, it's courage, it's strength in its rawest, most powerful form. But see, a weak man, he don't know what to do with real feelings. He don't even know how to feel his own, let alone hold space for yours. So instead of being honest, he hides, he disappears, he ghosts, he jokes everything off. He plays cool when deep down he's drowning. That's why I'm telling you, pay attention to how a man handles emotional intimacy. Not sex, I said emotional intimacy. How does he react when you ask him to open up, to be real, to show you more than just the surface? Because a weak man doesn't do that. He runs from depth. He avoids conversations that require accountability, vulnerability, or any sort of emotional presence. He'll give you charm, he'll give you attention, he'll give you the games. Oh yeah, he's got plenty of those, hot and cold, that act interested today and disappear tomorrow. The "I'm not ready for anything serious, but I still want all your energy" kind of games. And the crazy part is some women fall for that, not because you're not smart, but because he's mastered the art of manipulation through confusion. You think he's mysterious? Nah, he's just scared. Scared to be real, scared to be seen. Scared to be vulnerable because deep down he believes if someone ever saw the real him, they'd walk away. And instead of facing that fear, he masked it with ego, game, silence, or sex. A real man doesn't have time for those games. Why? Because he knows what he wants and he moves with intention. He knows that playing with a woman's heart isn't something to be proud of. It's something boys do when they don't know who they are. The real ones understand that love takes risk. You gotta risk rejection. You gotta risk being misunderstood. You gotta risk being seen without all the armor. And that's where the strength is. That's where the difference is. A strong man says, "I'd rather be real and rejected than fake and accepted." But a weak man, he'd rather run a whole script than tell the truth. He'll pretend he's busy when really he just doesn't want to have the conversation. He'll breadcrumb you just enough so you don't walk away, but not enough to actually commit. He's not leading you anywhere. He's just making sure you don't leave while he figures out if he's gonna step up or stay the same. And you know what's wild? Some of these men even know they're weak. They know they're not ready. They know they're not capable of giving what you're asking for. But they'd rather keep you on the hook than be man enough to admit that. So they put on a mask. They show you only the parts of them that you'll praise and hide the rest. They keep it surface level because that's safe, because that requires nothing. Vulnerability, though, that requires everything. You gotta show up without the filter. You gotta take off the mask. You gotta admit, "I don't have it all figured out." And for a weak man, that feels impossible. His whole image is built on control, and vulnerability feels like losing it. But let me tell you something, vulnerability is where connection lives. You'll never truly know a man until he lets you see him without the act, until he drops the games and just says what he really feels. And when a man can't do that, you'll always feel like you're dating a ghost. He's there, but you can't reach him. He touches you, but you don't feel held. He texts you, but it never feels deep. You talk, but it's surface. And then you start to wonder if maybe you're the problem. Maybe you're too much. Maybe you're asking for too much. No, you're not. You're just dealing with someone who doesn't have the capacity to love you at the level you're built for. Games are for people who don't know how to communicate, people who fear real love because they're not ready to show up fully. A real man doesn't need to manipulate a woman to feel powerful. He doesn't need to hide behind tactics to feel in control. He shows up. He says what he means. He listens when you speak. He apologizes when he's wrong. And he's not afraid to say, I need you, or that really affected me, because he knows that truth isn't weakness. It's the doorway to growth, to healing, to intimacy. So don't confuse mystery with maturity. Don't confuse silence with depth. Don't confuse games with standards. A man who's ready for real love won't make you guess where you stand. He'll tell you, he'll show you, and most of all, he'll be brave enough to let you see all of him, flaws, fears, and all. Let's get one thing straight right out the gate. Inconsistency is not confusion, it's communication. It's a man telling you, without actually saying the words, I'm not built for what you're expecting. He's showing you that follow through ain't his strong suit. That accountability isn't in his toolbox. And too many women ignore that sign because they want to believe he's just going through something or he's figuring it out. No, sis. What he's doing is giving you the blueprint of who he is. And he's betting you won't walk away. He's hoping you'll mistake his inconsistency for mystery, that you'll call it potential instead of what it really is, a pattern. And patterns don't lie. A man who can't keep his word is already off track before the race even starts. He says he's gonna pull and he doesn't. Says he's gonna pull up, but he flops. Promises change, promises effort, promises consistency. But what you keep getting is silence, excuses, and that same old story with a different spin. That's not strength, that's weakness wearing cologne in a good story. And it's real slick too, because sometimes he'll do just enough to keep you around. He'll show up when he feels you slipping away. He'll give you just enough attention to keep hope alive. But that man is not consistent. He's not dependable. And I don't care how charming he is. If you can't trust a man's word, you can't trust the man. Let me tell you something about real men. Their word means something. They don't play with promises. If they say they're going to do something, they do it. Not because they're trying to impress you, but because that's how they move. That's their character. Their foundation. A strong man understands that integrity is non-negotiable. You don't have to chase him down, remind him, or beg him to show up. He's already there because he said he would be. His consistency isn't seasonal. It's not only when things are going good, it's who he is even on his worst day. Even when life gets heavy, because strength isn't proven in moments of comfort. It's proven in moments of chaos. That's when you find out what a man's really made of. But a weak man, he'll make grand gestures and bold declarations and then vanish like none of it ever happened. He'll build castles in conversation but never lay a single brick. And when you confront him about it, he'll hit you with the classic lines, I've just been busy. You're overthinking it, or why are you making it such a big deal? But that's not accountability, that's deflection. That's a man trying to gaslight you into thinking your standards are the problem. He's not confused, he's inconsistent on purpose. Because inconsistency gives him control. He decides when to show up, when to disappear, when to care, and when to leave you guessing. That's power to a man who doesn't have real strength. And if you're not careful, you'll start adjusting your expectations just to match his chaos. See, a lot of women stay because they think inconsistency is just part of the getting to know each other phase. Nah, it's not a phase, it's a warning. A man's habits in the beginning are not going to get better with time. If he's inconsistent now, what do you think that turns into when life gets real? When money's tight, kids are in the picture. When you need support, not just a vibe. Inconsistency is a seed that grows into disappointment every single time. And the truth is, when a man wants to be consistent, he will be, no matter how busy he is, no matter what he has going on. When he values something or someone, he finds a way. He doesn't go days without talking to you and then act like that's normal. He doesn't make promises and forget them the next morning. He doesn't flip between hot and cold like you're supposed to read his mind. Consistency isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. A man who is serious about you will move like he's serious about you. Period. But some of y'all are holding on to potential, clinging to maybe and someday because you don't want to start over, and I get it. It's hard. But let me be clear. Starting over is not the worst thing that can happen. Staying with a man who makes you question your worth every other week, that's worse. A man who can't keep his word is not a mystery. He's not complicated. He's not misunderstood. He's just not ready. He's not willing. He's not strong enough to handle the kind of love that requires consistency, accountability, and presence. So stop looking for deeper meaning in inconsistency. Stop thinking you can love him into changing his patterns. Pay attention to the signs because he's already shown you the truth. And if he can't hold up his word now, when everything is still fresh and new, you better believe it's only going to get more disappointing down the line. Inconsistency is the cousin of weakness, and weakness never builds anything that lasts. Let's clear this up right now. You are not a rehab center for broken men. You are not a project manager for someone's emotional immaturity. You are not built to be the backbone of someone who refuses to grow one. The problem is, a lot of women fall in love with potential. What he could be, might become, should already know. But real love doesn't require you to play therapist, mother, or savior. Real love comes from partnership, not rescue missions. And that's why this truth matters. You don't fix a weak man. You recognize one before your heart gets involved. Because by the time you're in love, it's a whole lot harder to leave.